Hi there, my name is Mr. Pete. I am a fourth grade teacher and I am currently reading Louis Sachar's Holes. What a fantastic book. We are about to start chapter 24 a day after going back in time, 110 years, to find out about two new characters, Ms. Catherine Barlow and Mr. Trout Walker. The question is why? Why did we go back 110 years to learn about Green Lake before Stanley got there? We know that Catherine Barlow is this wonderful, sweet teacher, and we know that Trout Walker is a horrible, rich, privileged, uneducated jerk. He wants to marry Catherine Barlow because she's beautiful, not because she's smart. And very interesting, some people have made connections between Trout and Elia, except for Elia he wanted to marry Myra Menke because she was beautiful, but the minute he learned that her mind was as empty as a flower pot, he didn't want to marry her anymore. Whereas you have Trout Walker, who could care less that Catherine Barlow's brain isn't as empty as a flower pot. His is, and she doesn't want to have anything to do with him. So interesting connections. So let's jump into 24. Are we going to come back to our normal time, or are we going to stick with this anecdote? Let's find out. Stanley was half asleep as he got in line for breakfast, but the sight of Mr. Sir awakened him. Okay, pause, because Mr. Sir had his face scratched because of Stanley. It wasn't really because of Stanley, but that's what happened, is the warden scratched him with the rattlesnake nail polish. Uh-oh. The left side of Mr. Sir's face had swollen to the size of half a cantaloupe. Similarly, comparing the swollen face to a cantaloupe, maybe hyperbole, maybe not. There were 3 dark purple jagged lines running down his cheek where the warden had scratched him. The other boys in Stanley's tent had obviously seen Mr. Sir as well, but they had the good sense not to say anything. Stanley put a cartoon of juice and a plastic spoon on his tray. He kept his eyes down and hardly breathed as Mr. Sir ladled some oatmeal-like stuff into his bowl. He brought his tray to the table. Behind him, a boy from one of the other tents said, "Hey, what happened to your face?" There was a crash. Stanley turned to see Mr. Sir holding the boy's head against the oatmeal pot. "Is there something wrong with my face?" The boy tried to speak, but couldn't. Mr. Sir had him by the throat. "Does anyone see anything wrong with my face?" asked Mr. Sir as he continued to choke the boy. Nobody said anything. Mr. Sir let the boy go. His head banged against the table as he fell to the ground. Mr. Sir stood over him and asked, "How does my face look to you now?" A gurgling sound came out of the boy's mouth. Then he managed to gasp the word, "Fine." "I'm kinda handsome, don't you think?" "Yes, Mr. Sir." Out on the lake, the other boys asked Stanley what he knew about Mr. Sir's face, but he just shrugged and dug his hole. If he didn't talk about it, maybe it would go away. He worked as hard and as fast as he could, not trying to pace himself. He just wanted to get off the lake and away from Mr. Sir as soon as possible. Besides, he knew he'd get a break. "Whenever you're ready, just let me know," Zero had said. The first time the water truck came, it was driven by Mr. Pendanski. The second time, Mr. Sir was driving. No one said anything except, "Thank you, Mr. Sir," as he filled each canteen. No one even dared to look at his grotesque face. Highlight grotesque. It's a really great word for ugly. As Stanley waited, he ran his tongue over the roof of his mouth and inside his cheeks. His mouth was as dry and as parched as the lake. Simile, comparing his dry mouth to the dry lake. The bright sun reflected off the side mirror of the truck, and Stanley had to shield his eyes with his hand. "Thank you, Mr. Sir," said Magnet as he took his canteen from him. "You thirsty caveman?" Mr. Sir asked. "Yes, Mr. Sir," Stanley said, handing his canteen to him. Mr. Sir opened the nozzle, and the water flowed out of the tank, but it did not go into Stanley's canteen. Instead, he held the canteen right next to the stream of water. Stanley watched the water splatter on the dirt, where it was quickly absorbed by the thirsty ground. Highlight that personification. Ground can't be thirsty. Mr. Sir let the water run for about 30 seconds, then stopped. "You want more?" he asked. Stanley didn't say anything. Mr. Sir turned the water back on, and again Stanley watched it pour onto the dirt. There, that should be plenty. He handed Stanley the empty canteen. Stanley stared at the dark spot on the ground, which quickly shrank before his eyes. Thank you, Mr. Sir, he said. Well, now we see how Mr. Sir is going to get back everybody, not only Stanley, but all of the boys. He gives them all water, but that one boy asked about his face, and he, literally grabbed him by his throat and smashed his head down into the oatmeal pot. Ew. And then, of course, instead of giving Stanley water, he dumped it straight onto the ground. We'll see if that continues. So we're back in real time here, and we left Green Lake from 110 years ago back to Camp Green Lake in current time. And we see that Mr. Sir is going to make Stanley's life miserable. Here we go. We're in the thick of it now. What is going on? But that's for another chapter, which we will start soon. All right, so we're going to stop there. Again, like, subscribe, leave comments. I love everybody who reads this, including my very own class. Guys, leave comments if you are allowed to, and I absolutely will comment back. This is a great avenue for teachers. This is a great avenue for students. This is a great avenue for anybody who's reading this book to have a wonderful conversation with people all over the place. I think creating this universal dialogue is so important, especially today, and especially around books. So let's keep reading, let's keep making our brains smarter, and let's keep having great conversations around great novels. All right, we're going to stop there, and I will see you all on the next page. Peace.